Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry, from the informative to the insane. Starring Ryan Rash.
You glow differently when it's fueled by belief in yourself.
And Dale Hummel.
Conquer your competition with authenticity.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Current events could be a couple hours long today.
Well, let's start by talking about your girlfriend. Since
I have so many in your mind, would you
well,
be more specific?
I mean, all your boyfriends are out, so all you have left is
the South Dakota girlfriend.
No, South Carolina, Nikki Haley.
Oh,
I know you keep wanting the girl from South Dakota to run for president. She's not running. Okay, so just let it go. She's not running.
Vice president.
Okay, well, that hasn't been decided yet. But since you were the anti-Trump person on this podcast.
Oh my. Go ahead. Continue.
Your girlfriend. So, long story short, I'm going to make the Nevada people are crazy. They had a primary yesterday because the Democrats had their primary. The Republican primary does not matter because the Nevada GOP is holding a caucus tomorrow where the 26 delegates will be awarded. Trump did not.
The Republican primary that they voted on yesterday
does not count.
They do nothing with it.
Right, does nothing.
Correct.
Does nothing, has nothing to do with anything. But that is why Trump wasn't on the ballot, because he is only participating in the caucus because that is what the Nevada GOP asked the presidential candidates to do. Nikki Haley decides to stay on the ballot. She's the only one on the ballot. The only one. She still loses. 63% chose none of the above candidates.
Oh, and in Nevada, do they have to choose if I assume they have to either vote. They can only vote.
They couldn't write in anybody. They either had to choose Nikki Haley.
Can they go
or none of
Can a Democrat go vote for a Republican and vice versa?
Yes.
I don't even know.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
Irregardless, I saw her having a meltdown. I thought she looked like she was having a meltdown. I assume it was over this.
I would think so. That's very embarrassing for your girlfriend.
I think her. Did you look at the South Carolina polls?
They're worse. She's going to lose.
Yeah,
by 30%.
they're going. You want to talk about embarrassing in her home state? It's getting worse and worse. She cannot stay in through that. It will be so painful.
Like, I don't understand why. I'll give Don Juan credit. Like, we talked on this podcast after Iowa, he's got to get out. Like, he's got to get out. Like, if he wants any future in politics, he's got to get out. He should have done it the night after Iowa, but he didn't. But like before New Hampshire, he did. Everyone in the world has told this poor lady, you're making a fool of yourself. And she's just defying all of it. So when you lose your home state that you were a 2-term governor in by 30 percentage points, what is the spin there?
I don't think she has one. I think she says she's going through Super Tuesday.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
She won't. I'm going to go on the record right now. She cannot. She will not. Even though she says she is.
Did you hear about our lovely president?
I have so much about lovely president.
My two things are, number one, Trump called on him to debate immediately. And Biden's response was, well, of course Trump wants to debate me. He has nothing to lose. So what does that mean on your end, sir?
I don't have any idea.
That was a terrible answer. And
nothing to lose.
Yeah, of course Trump wants to debate me because he has nothing to lose. Like, that doesn't even make logical sense.
What about all of his answers? All the time.
Oh, I
Ryan,
know.
They don't make sense. I get so frustrated that we have him in the White House right now, and he has not only do I not agree with his views when he can think of what they are, but he's just not there. He's gone. Mentally, he's gone.
I'm with you. And to prove that point, the other day he was in a press conference or something. He was talking about that he just had a great phone call with the French president and rolls off this name, and that man's been dead for 34 years.
He probably did have a conversation with him at one time.
Yes.
No doubt.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. But yeah.
Oh,
dead for 34 years.
It is terrible. So what has bothered me the most that he's come out, and I've seen this a couple times, he is going to remind the American public every day that the crisis at the border is Trump and the Republicans' fault.
Did you hear this morning the latest on that?
No.
Since October 1, over 1 million migrant crossings.
Yes, I did see that. And I can take it a little further for you.
Oh, good. Yeah.
This year alone, this is from January 1, I believe. 19,000 of them were Chinese nationals.
Oh, that is great.
I did the math on that. That's 150 Chinese migrants each day.
Mm.
And again, this is different. They're dressed up, neat and clean. I'm not. Some of these Chinese people may want to get the hell out of China and come here. I get it. I understand. But when you can bring that many
You're
in,
so rude to China.
How easy is
it's
it for China to send? How easy is it for the CCP to infiltrate into our country? It's wide open. They can do it. And it's interesting, and I did see that piece, probably the same one you saw. They're dressed up. There's video of people, Chinese, with roller bags coming off the airplane, walking across the border with their roller bags.
Yeah.
And they went further into it. They say, well, they fly into Central America. They take a plane from Central America to Tijuana, which is right across the border from San Diego. And via TikTok, there's videos on there that show them exactly on the border where the opening is to walk through. Here's where to hire somebody to help smuggle you to that point if you need guidance. I mean, it's all laid out right there. It is just incredible to me.
You blame TikTok for everything.
No, I don't. I'm concerned, because it's another tool in China's weaponry to overtake the U.S., at least from an economic standpoint. I think we should have TikTok of some form, but it should be American owned and within this company, and not CCP manipulated so they can play with our elections and allow certain things on and off. I could go on forever about that. What about the border?
Can you explain to me why they did not impeach the border man?
I can. I think I can. And I was very angry when I saw that when four Republicans chose not to impeach Mayorkas.
Yes.
Mayorkas is our Homeland Security person.
He's the secretary of something.
Yes, Homeland Security. What he's in charge of the border, in theory, I guess, if you're going to say here's a person that a lot of it goes through. And I was furious when I saw 4 Republicans did not vote to impeach him. However, and I was going to bring their names up and all these things, I dug into it just a little bit deeper.
Oh, Jesus, now you're going to defend them.
No. And with that said, it's not just Mayorkas. Obviously, it's the entire administration. Mayorkas is just doing what the White House wants him to do. If you were to impeach him, which is impossible, and that's part of the reason it doesn't matter what those 4 voted, they are never going to get 3/4 of the Senate to vote to impeach him, which we have to get Mayorkas out of office. Let's say they did, which they won't, and they can't. Biden is just going to appoint somebody else that's very similar, and it's not going to change anything. We need a complete and total administration change.
So that was the 4 Republicans' reason it won't pass the Senate, like they said that?
And they thought it was making a bad example for the future, which I don't, it is in essence, that the Democrats will use this against Republicans, and it's just politicizing impeachment and all these things, which I kind of understand that. I don't know that they said it was some of them, one of them, that it wasn't necessarily an impeachable offense, kind of a gray area and interpretation. I'm going to take it a little further, but the same direction when we're talking about the border. So Biden's border bill is what he's trying to fly it out there as, and that's what he's saying the Republicans are against, and that's why the border is the way it is. Well, the bill has just been introduced. The Republicans are going to kill it. There's no question. Because if they don't have this bill has money in it for many things, including the border. But that border money is to bring more agents in so they can process more immigrants and organize more immigrants faster through the whole system. So it's basically giving money to help bring more in more quickly, if that makes sense. If that border bill isn't specifically going to legislate some of the executive orders that Trump put in place, like stay in Mexico, and if it doesn't have on there completion of the wall or building the wall, it's going to do no good. Those two things were working. And I think that's where the Republican caucus is. They want those things enacted. And I'm all for having it legislated so it becomes law and not just an executive order that can be turned over in the next presidency, make it a little more difficult to change. So I see those things, but that's what Biden's going to throw out there in the mainstream media. The Republicans are against his border bill, so they're responsible for all the chaos at the border, all the crisis at the border. And if there's anybody out there that believes that, I hope they're not listening to this podcast.
You'd be very unhappy with them.
I would be unhappy, very, very unhappy. There's so many things. This is a totally different topic, but I feel I have to bring it out just a little bit. I saw something, and we've talked about this before. Squatters, Ryan. Do you understand squatters' rights, or something that they try to use to basically you break into somebody's home when they're not there and claim it your home, and you can't get rid of them? Mm-hmm. Have we talked about that?
They have rights?
They do. And it's been brought up several times, and it doesn't get as much attention as I would think. So an example, a lady was off on a military tour. A squatter breaks into her house, claims now that's where he's living. It's his house. This is a person with a criminal record. While she's gone, he takes over the house for however long. She returns home, finds a criminal in her house. She calls the police. The police refuse and cannot arrest or remove the person. It has to go through a civil process, which is a very long court process, for her to get a convicted criminal out of her home because while she was that broke in and stayed in her home while she was away on tour. Is there anything that you can point out that's logical there?
Okay, I am not one for violence.
Oh.
I would have shot the person.
I am in favor of violence.
I'm just saying, I would have shot.
So this was in Atlanta, but you hear it happening in a lot of places, and doesn't it just seem like those things are impossible? There's 1,200 situations right now this week in Atlanta, like the one I just used as an example. So our justice system is broken on so many levels, but this exemplifies how upside down the system has become to protect and even encourage criminal acts, in my opinion. No repercussions for shoplifting under $950. You can break into a house as long as you claim this is now where you're living. The owner of that house cannot have the police remove you. There's so many things are screwed up. It's unbelievable.
I'm not arguing.
Violence, shooting, kneecaps, those things. Oh, that's the only thing that's going to get us back in place. I did see another statistic. U.S. credit card holders now have $1 trillion in credit card debt.
Oh, that's good.
That's painful. That's going to be, but Biden comes out and tells us how good the economy is.
Bidenomics.
Bidenomics. Is he still using that, or do they dump it? They bring it back? What are they
doing? I think that he's been told that he can't ever say that word again.
Oh, it's just amazing to me.
I'm pretty sure he's been told he cannot ever use the word Bidenomics again for as long as he's running for president.
Probably good advice. It's interesting. There were some people that have immigrated into our country legally and become citizens.
Melania Trump.
They were interviewing some that are so frustrated that they had to jump through a lot of hoops and take a lot of time, and I'm sure incur great cost of doing it when they could just walk across the border now.
Mm-hmm.
Just walk. They're highlighting Denver and the dollar amounts that's going to be up to 15% of their budget already just to take care of the immigrants that have come to Denver. And it's the point where he can't do it, the mayor, even though he appears sympathetic and fairly well-spoken. I believe he's going to remove them from the shelters or implement as 2 weeks in a shelter or 5 weeks as a family. And then you're back out, you're done. So it's getting to the point that I cannot imagine even the far left are going to revolt against Biden's border policy.
Well, I have said on here, and I will say again, when Biden loses the presidency, it is over the border wall. Not the wall, the border situation, border crisis,
just not
border
closing down the
travesty, whatever you want to call it.
I am with you 100%. It's amazing to me that it continues to go on even as it does. Absolutely amazing. So I don't know. Do you have any further current events, or would you like to tell us a little bit about the BTRJLA?
I don't know. That was a lot.
Yeah, and it didn't take as long as I thought. We could bring up that Trump is now saying that Anheuser-Busch is not a woke company. Did he not say
Okay, you do that. Do Google right now.
All I know is my wife brought to my attention and she was very angry that Trump had made a comment that Anheuser-Busch is not a woke company, and something about if you want a list of woke companies, he'll give them to you. So I do not know. It seems a little out of character for him, and I still am pretty anti-Anheuser-Busch. Sorry if I offended the LGBTQZY community.
He said that whatever wasn't a woke company, great American company. He also said that was bad idea, caused damage, but some companies deserve a second chance. I don't think it's quite as bad as Holly made it out to be, but I would say it was a misstep.
That is possible, and there is a chance that they are donating to his campaign. There is always that chance.
Yeah, it's very possible. But
I don't know, but it's interesting. I'm just glad that, and I don't think Anheuser-Busch, their misstep there was pretty large. Hard to believe a company would think that would work. I appreciate that people came out and showed that they're tired of the woke bullshit, but there's no question Anheuser-Busch has probably taken on more of the weight of that rebellion than anything else. And there's lots of woke companies out there that we're supporting every single day that I wish we wouldn't.
I'm not going to argue there either. But so the final national top 10 for 2023 GOAT. So the champion is Travis Arney from Indiana with 700 points. Reserve champion is Cameron Shelton from California with 690 points. Third was Reagan Arney of Indiana with 590 points. Fourth, Caitlin McCulley, 570 points. Fifth, Paisley Carlson, California, 565 points. Sixth, Piper Liska, Arizona, 535 points. Seventh, Audrey Poling, West Virginia, 510 points. Eighth, Echo Bartles, Colorado, 509 points. Ninth, Alexis Willis, Delaware, 505 points. And 10th, Colby Wilson, Delaware, 505 points. So congratulations to the 2023 National Overall Top 10 GOAT exhibitors. We do have 2024 points up on the website, the first set of points. So the year started. It is out there. I want to give a couple of reminders. Reminder number 1, you have to sign up for showmanship as well as the breeding and market points if you want showmanship. You can sign up for showmanship alone, but showmanship is new this year and some people are confused. You have to join the showmanship portion to get showmanship points. So I just want to put that out there. I've done that several times.
You can sign up for the breeding and market and not showmanship.
Right. Or vice versa. Either way, you can do both or just one of them, but you don't get two. It's not a 2-for-1 special, people. Okay? That's what I'm saying.
I think maybe those that sign up for 2, you should give a discount.
No. Next. Do not help, Dale. Do not help.
Okay. Next.
Next. We have had a lot of people calling or messaging all these things about sanctioning shows. I'm going to say this for the 5,000th time. Anyone can sanction a show. Anyone. If you're going to the show, you can sanction the show and pay for it. It's only $50 per species. If it is on the Showman app, you don't even have to worry about anything else. If Showman app's doing the show and they're not sanctioned or not willing to pay the lovely $50 sanctioning fee, which is cheap as hell, it's an entry fee, go ahead and sanction it. As long as it's on the Showman app, they are sending results directly to us because they are our partner in show results for 2024. If it is not done through the Showman app, you have to make sure that show, whoever's in charge, will email us the results. But you can sanction it. Anybody can sanction it. But we have to have results from the show management. You just can't write down results and send them to us. That's not how it works. But there you go.
I think that's clear. That's good.
Okay. Next.
Is it
Water
time to remind everyone that hydration is the single most important management factor for success in the ring? Everyone assumes that if livestock are drinking, they are fully hydrated. There's a big difference between drinking enough to survive versus drinking enough to hit maximum hydration. Muscle is 80% water. If the animal avoids city water at a show because of the chlorine, the solution is simple. ShowFresh H2O will neutralize the chlorine and your animal will drink more. ShowFresh H2O can be purchased at your local farm store, show supply trailer, and at swampfox.com.
I think you need to send me some of that because I really needed to try it after the Fort Worth Steer Show. I was a little dehydrated on Saturday.
Anybody contacts me, I can get them some samples to try. I have the connections. I got it. We will have some in the mail to you.
I'm just going to tell you that my dehydration was all self-induced, but I was the most dehydrated Saturday. But anyway.
Main topic.
Yeah.
Playing the game.
Yeah.
And when Ryan and I discussed doing this episode
900 years ago,
and again for a couple minutes last night, I believe, or this morning, I wanted to make clear this is not meant to be negative to our industry at all, but rather bring up real things that are happening. And Ryan and I can't wave a magic wand and fix
I don't know why you think this is negative. It's not all going.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be some negative. You said you're not holding back. You're just.
Well, no, I'm not going to lie to people.
And that's how it needs to be. What I'm getting at is we can't fix it ourselves. We can bring it up, and because we've have a staggering listener base at this point, some of the topics that we bring up, there is good being done in the industry in the right direction because of such. So we do encourage those of you out there listening to discuss these things and take it to your show management. Do what you can, and maybe by just bringing light to some of these things will make people question, should I or should I not do that? With that said, there's plenty of things in playing the game is referring to succeeding in the show ring that are perfectly fine that will bring out and say, hey, these are some of the things you need to do. But I'm sure there'll be a little bit of negative that is being done. Use it as an example that Ryan, and we'll cite them each individually, but some of them are perfectly legal. I just don't know how moral they are. How's that?
Yeah, and that's kind of like this is a sport first and foremost. Let's just get that out of the way.
A competitive sport.
Yes, extremely competitive, and in all sports, I guess the interesting thing about our sport is, when it comes to, there's a lot more gray area in this sport than any other one, I guess is the best way to put it, because we don't have a whole lot of hard and fast rules in some different areas, but playing
and not necessarily just, and there are rules there, and if they can't be enforced, Ryan has said a million times we shouldn't have them, but I don't think there's not a governing body of any means, and every single show may have their own set of rules. And I'm a huge advocate that maybe we should try to get more on the same page, but that's never going to happen, I don't think.
I don't think so either. But if you're going to be in this game, you're going to have to play it if you want to be successful, and that's just part of it. And so, like, some of the things that I want to talk about here is, a lot of times we go out and everybody tries to buy the best animals that they can afford. I think that's quite obvious. So after that, you've bought the best animal that you can afford. What can you do, or what do people do to help improve their chance of success in playing this game? I think there are some ways to do it that are completely above board.
And absolutely need to be done, period.
Right.
If you're going to succeed.
Right. And some of those things are like researching the judge. If you're, whether it's a market animal and you're going for that endpoint, and Dale will probably tell you the story of when I judged Cow Palace about this, but you have to do research on the judge, and that is part of this. And so, Dale, tell your story about me, because you had not ever shown goats to me, and you were going to, because this is part of it.
No, and it's not even. It's a fairly short story. I'm a terrible storyteller. But
to tell the damn stories.
I obviously have known Ryan and have a pretty good idea on what he does in most species. And he's never hidden from the fact that he likes them kind of exotic, a little bit sexy, and I mean, just not afraid to take one that's good looking and built right and all those type of things. If you have an animal in the goat world that happens to be wildly colored up, not saying that's what you have to have to necessarily win under Ryan, but I noticed many years ago that he was announced as the judge at Cow Palace, and I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. A couple phone calls later, not to Ryan, but just to people that would know a little more about it, they said, take him a good built, good looking one, and if it's got color, call that a bonus, and run with it. Quality, cool look, anything extra is all good. So we chose to make that long trip out there, and I believe my daughter Tara would have taken a wild colored, painted up red goat, and another family out here in Illinois had a painted goat that they just came through, I believe, State Fair with and had some success, and he was a black paint. So I reached out to them and said, hey, do you want to go to San Francisco and show to Ryan Rash? I think that goat will get along well under him. So we loaded up both of those goats and actually just threw them in a popper. And away we went to San Francisco. And it went well, maybe is the best way to put it. Why did it go well? There were lots of goats we could take to you, Ryan. You're aware of that, obviously.
Oh, yes, obviously.
But the two we chose, and the moral of the story is, I guess, because of the little bit of research I did and knowing Ryan's history, there were 20 different families that I could have encouraged to go out there, or gathered goats, or whatever you want to call it, to take to that particular show. But after doing a little bit of the research, it was really clear, well, here's two really good built, great looking ones that have enough shape to them, and they're wild colored in addition. This seems very simple.
Right. And again, he never contacted me or anything like that, but he did do research to find out what they thought, people that had shown to me what they thought I had liked. And it didn't take long, and he went out there and he was great in reserve. And again, I knew Dale at the time, but had probably never had more than a 5-minute conversation with him, but a couple of times in my life up until that point. But that you have to do. And, I do not think that you can contact the judge directly and ask them questions. I think that is...
that's a terrible idea, but you remember you mentioned earlier, you're not breaking a rule. There's no rule against it.
No, there's no rule against that.
No.
And
so, maybe it works. Maybe it would work for some. I promise you, if somebody contacted me, and I'm going to speak for Ryan as well, about a specific, it wouldn't go well. How's that?
No, it doesn't go well with me. I mean, like every show I judge, either someone sends a snap or whatever, or I'm bringing this one to you, what do you think, or something like that. And it does not go well with me. I don't think it would go well with most judges. But, how many times, Dale, do you get contacted? I'm judging the show. Hey, Ryan's judging this show. What do I need to take? I think that's perfectly acceptable, because you don't ever, say, oh, X, Y, and Z called me and want to know what take to you or anything like that. And there's a bunch of people like that. I think that's perfectly fine.
This is a good example, I think, Ryan. And this is perfect. And I don't even mention to you how many of those come into me, and I'm fine with it, but it does take up more of my time than ideal. Hey, what do I take to Ryan? I want to send some pictures to you or whatever, or just tell me. And I think most people now, it's slowed down a little bit because I think most people are kind of figuring it out or listened to the podcast or shown under you before. You're out there just a little bit, it seems like, sorting. But I still get them. And I'm not opposed to that. And I think that's fine. That's part of doing the research. And I can explain to them, if you've got a massive muscled animal of any species and it's pretty questionable in a couple areas in terms of movement and maybe kind of junk fronted, versus here's another one that's built quite a bit better and has maybe enough muscle to it and balances a little, that's an easy decision. Don't leave the one at home. It's not going to cause you harm when he describes it. Don't do that. But Ryan's point here is that is part of it. We've grown to the point in this industry that competition is so fierce, and we've grown to a point that we've alluded to before. There is no absolute tie or basis that animals have to look a certain way or fit into our commercial world or anything like that. And when there is no absolute that the judges have to follow a certain path, or a guide for them to follow by any means, or a base to work from, they can go any direction they want. And I think you will continue to see this across species, and we're experiencing it in the goats like crazy right now. Judges can select any animal that they want, and they can try to move a trend any direction they want. They can do anything they want once they're hired to give their opinion. That's what they're giving. And because of that, there's more variation in the type of animals that judges want across species, that if you don't do your homework a little bit and want to compete at the highest level, you may show up with an animal that you have no idea what that judge wants, and you may win that show. But you did it. It happened because of luck, and that's going to happen. I would sort out, here's the kind of animals we have. Here's the shows that we can go to. Which judge am I most likely to get along the best under, and make those kind of decisions? I think it puts you in a better place.
Yeah, I think you're right. But to wrap this little section up, doing your research is important because, again, you can't change everything about your animal, but if you have multiple animals on feed, you can pick the one that's probably the most that type and kind. If you only have one or one targeted for that, there are subtle things that you can do with feeding and grooming that can change that animal. And so that's why research is important. And just like Dale was talking about there are families out there in the show world, in almost every species, that consistently do well under me. And the reasons are they know what to bring to me. They know my type. They know my kind. They have either researched me or they have watched me judge enough. They know the animals to bring to show to me, because if I am nothing, I am consistent.
No, that is exactly right. And I think as people understand, not just you, but that judges are those that are consistent, hopefully are getting hired a little bit more and so forth. When people start figuring this out more, I believe that they will appreciate it. And we've seen it. And we've talked about this so many times. Those in Texas have understood this for years. Because of the 5 majors and State Fair and lots of jackpot shows, they'll put more animals on feed maybe than what we do up north. But they do that so they can take that animal when it comes time to head to the majors and take the animal they think best to Houston because it fits that judge. Let's target this animal for San Antonio because I think it fits that judge. And that's just second nature. And Ryan grew up with that. It's always been that way. It is becoming more of a norm in the north. But in the past, we would buy one animal and assume that every judge is going to see that animal as we do, or have that type in mind. And it just isn't that way. I'm not saying that we have to go buy more animals to fit the judge, but rather if we're on a budget, like Ryan said, buy the best animals that we can justify within our budget instead of putting a bunch of animals on feed. And if you can, that's great. And you have more choices. You can go to every show in the country because you might have something that fits that judge. But if you're not going to put that many on feed, look at all the different shows. Look at the judges that are sorting those shows and make that match happen. And show managers out there, I hope you're listening. In order for families to do this, guess what the show managers have to do, Ryan?
They have to announce the judge.
They do before the day of the show, before they introduce them. And again, there is no logical explanation not to do that. By announcing the judge, you're making this possibly a better experience for those show families and everybody involved.
Doing your research on the judge is a big thing for knowing what to expect that they want to do. Another thing that I think is very smart or can be utilized well is if Dale Hummel is judging Arizona National or your state fair or something, and maybe he's judging a jackpot show months in advance. A lot of people think it is a good idea to get FaceTime under the judge in the ring, so when they do judge the important show to them, that judge will be like, I remember this kid from XYZ. They were a good showman, or they had a good set of animals, all this other stuff. If you can make a positive impression under a judge before the show that you are concerned about targeting, all this other stuff, I think that works. I mean, I know people, and again, we're talking about Texas, but I know people that will go out of their way to show to a judge because he's judging a Texas major or she's judging a Texas major. Like, I want my kid in the ring under that person before San Antonio, before Houston, all this other stuff. And that is perfectly legit. I mean, again, we don't have legal or illegal, but game on. I get it. I understand it. The one thing that I'm going to caution on this is you've got to make a positive impression, first off. So make sure that you take good animals, you're on your game on showmanship, all this other stuff. If you are targeting one show, all this other stuff, I don't know if I would take the animal that I'm going to take to that person at that targeted show. Because if it's me, you don't want to give me two opportunities to figure out what's wrong with your animal. And I think that's the same with every judge. Number two, even if it is a out of this world elite animal, it is so much harder for the same animal to win under the same judge the second time. I can't explain to you all the reasons why, but it just is. But
and I think that applies, Ryan, to most judges, not all, but most. And,
right.
And I'm with you. You're giving that judge an opportunity to pick the animal apart more than ideal. Just like if you have the same judge doing showmanship the night before a national show, and he's going to also, or she is going to judge that show the next day. I'm not saying don't go out in showmanship, but if you've got one there that you're trying to get across and do extremely well with, I would not take that same one probably into showmanship unless he or she or that animal is so good that you're just absolutely confident it doesn't matter. He or she can't beat this one. But in general, probably better off not, just to be safe.
But on this portion of it, do you not agree that a lot of people try to get FaceTime with their kid under a judge before a bigger show? I
think a lot of people do, but the percentage of people out there showing livestock that are putting that much thought into it is probably less than what you're aware of. You in your mind, that's just that's happening, and it is, and you would have done that, and families you would advise, all those things. So it's probably a little more. It's not as prevalent as what you picture it as, and it is no question happening. And I don't know if I can't tell you why it's going to give you benefit. We're playing with the subconscious a little bit that, wow, I recognize that face. And we may not even know that, well, maybe I better give that animal a little closer look just to make sure that I'm not missing anything. And we talk about it sometimes. If I'm selling a goat that's kind of unique in some area, whether it's color or front end or whatever it may be, I'll talk about this one is going to get attention because it's a little different. Same thing. If you see it, as a judge, if you see a face that you recognize, it does. I'm not saying it draws you to that one, but you're going to look at it and be careful. This can help you if you've got a good one, but if you've got a bad one and you've done things to stimulate that judge to look a little closer because it did get his attention or you got his or her attention. It can work to the positive. It's a really good one. It can work to a negative. It's a bad one. I tell people, if you're buying a colored goat from us or anybody, I guess, in just my opinion, if it's colored up like that, they're usually going to give it a pretty, it sticks out, period. It draws you in, which can be good if everything about that goat is really good. But if that's a terrible goat and it's colored up, you're just bringing more attention to the terrible goat. I hope that takes it in the right direction. But yes, I agree it's happening. How's that for a short answer?
I don't think there's anything immoral or unethical about that whatsoever. So trying to give tips in a positive light to help things out. I think both of those, during research, maybe getting your kid in front of the judge beforehand. I think all those are good.
I have to insert right here. I apologize for interrupting. Okay, and I'm asking you a question. You'd made a comment that there's some families that have done very well under you several times because they know what to bring to you. With that said, I'm curious, and you do a lot of jackpots all over the country. Every level of show you're there doing them. I'm just curious because I don't think our listeners could probably put a number to this, maybe where I think it will be. What's your best guess on a single individual? How many times a individual is shown to you the most? In other words, there's got to be a person that's shown to you more than anybody else. How many times do you think that person? I'm not asking for names or anything, but do you think a person you can think of a person that's maybe hit you 3 times? Have they shown to you 5 times? Or have they shown to you 10 times?
Yeah, there's a big family that I'd say a dozen, but we're talking over 10 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like 5 years, whatever. But yeah.
And when they show you to that many times, you're going to recognize that face. It just is what it is.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no doubt. No.
It just is.
But yeah, no doubt. But I do, and not every judge mind works exactly like mine does. Thank God for them. But I don't care who you are. Most people are going to be like, I may not know where, but I remember that kid showing to me. You know what I'm saying? Like that's going to be there in most people's mind. They walk in or whatever, like they may not be able to recall exactly what show, but they're like, I've seen that kid show to me before. That is the thing that I think connects. And also, on this topic, and where having your kid have FaceTime with the judge, I sit there, and Dale and I have talked about the fact that if you can make yourself stand out in a way that's positive with the judge, if you have a judge like me or other judges that interact with the kids, if you can have some special one-on-one interaction with that judge, that's going to make you even more memorable. And those are the things that you put yourself in the opportunity to have when you go under that person before they judge the major show or the state fair that you're targeting, and that's why you're there. Those are the reasons. Those are reasons why this helps. Maybe they recognize your face. Maybe your kid and that judge, he says, "How are you doing?" And you say something, and I just watched it Fort Worth. Mark Hogue was talking to several kids and like laughing and talking and all this other stuff. Not every kid, but there were several times where you could tell that kid really made him laugh. From the next time, if there is a next time, he's probably going to remember that kid. And it's going to be a positive reaction when that kid comes back into the ring. And so that's what I'm getting at.
And what about, and we've talked about this, what about that kid, Ryan? And you've seen it so many times. You pull him into second or third or beat him in that champion drive that really is unhappy, and we're going to throw poor sport onto that. Guess what image that brings to your mind next time you see him?
It's not good. So,
FaceTime, like Ryan said, positive FaceTime. That's the key.
Right.
Positive FaceTime.
That's the whole thing. That's why I caution people on this, because a lot of people have come out and said, yeah, it can work to your advantage. It also can work to your disadvantage. And the first thing that I talked about was taking the animal that you're targeting towards that judge. I wouldn't do it. Example, I have judged the Sandhills Hereford show the past 2 years. Well, the first year I did it, someone had to cancel out and I filled in at the last moment. But this past year, I've been announced, when I did it this last January, I've been announced since the week after the show. I saw a lot of kids show under me this year, but they left their Herefords at home for the reasons that obvious. They did not want me to see their Hereford before game time. And so I get that. But I wouldn't take that one animal. And if you weren't sure that your kid could at least come out with a neutral experience or aiming for a positive one, best off leave this section of it alone, I think.
I agree completely. And that's interesting. And these are things, guys, we talked about it, but it's interesting to me that some families will put this much thought into it. And Ryan, maybe because of your instinctive competition level within you, you're going to think of every possible way to put yourself in a position to succeed, whether it was when you were showing or the families you're helping, or now when we're talking about this in the podcast. And not everybody that shows, they're maybe ultra competitive. They want their kids to have a good experience at the county fair. And maybe if they go to another show throughout the year, that's great and all positive. Maybe their focus is on basketball or something else. But it seems as though human nature, it has competition within all of us to different levels. And I think those families out there that are ultra competitive, they're thinking about these things and they're doing these things. And maybe some families that aren't thinking about everything they possibly can do to put themselves in the best position possible, don't understand or haven't heard about a lot of things maybe that we're talking about, or just how hard those families that are succeeding sometimes are working at it and the thought that they're putting into it.
No. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I think that this is something that we talk about, things that can help you succeed besides buying the very best animal that you can. And I think that we need to put this stuff out there. So, because I realize that I'm insanely competitive and I lay awake at night trying to think of ways to give myself an edge and all this other stuff. And I'm on the way out there side of things, but there are more in the realm of me than what people think. And there are a lot more people out there that are thinking of ways of what do I do to get my kid an edge, or what can I do to make this absolutely, give my kid every single opportunity to get the big banner at a national show or state fair, all this other stuff. There's more in my corner than what you think. I'm just saying.
I understand. I get that. And that's, and it's a little bit the world that you're in, and that's great. And an example would be, think about all the families that have children that are competitive in a given sport, and the personal trainers and the camps that they're going to and the private leagues that they're playing on. It's just, it's everywhere, guys. It's competition continues to rise. It just does. And I'm not saying that every person out there needs to do all these things because we're trying to win a national show with whatever animal we're showing, but just bringing to light that, wow, these are some things that are pretty big. And I don't know if this fits in here, Ryan, but I want to bring it up because I think it's important. And this is maybe a little more basic, but I see it on a regular basis, whether it's people that contact us because they heard something on the podcast, or even some of the clients that I've sold animals to. Sometimes we overlook the basics. And when we talk about playing the game, obviously management, everything has to be right. And I want to address just briefly, and it wasn't maybe, I hadn't intended to do this, but it's hit me pretty hard, and I want to put it out there, that sometimes when we've got our show animals in the barn, we're so we're putting so much time in. We're trying to find every little advantage we can or edge, whether it be a specific drench formula or a new hair product that's going to do maybe just a little bit more or whatever that may be. Or we've got to be in the cooler at a certain time and out at a certain time, and we've got to spend so many hours brushing that hair. All of these things. And it's not, and the reason I'm bringing it out, there's some families that work so hard at it and they get so engrossed in it. Sometimes we have to prioritize the basics just a little bit more. In other words, let's make sure that they've got water, and not just water in front of them, but fresh water. That bucket's dumped twice a day or whatever that tank is, so it's perfectly clean. Let's make sure that we're running fecals on these animals, or at least on a really consistent parasite protocol program that we know works. I'm in the middle of sales season, and I tell every buyer, or even if they don't talk to me beforehand, I'll email out a management protocol to everyone that buys a goat. And this protocol is basically exactly what my daughter Katie is doing in the barn with her show goats every day. And everybody's expecting maybe this magic wand or these big secrets that are in there. And there is no magic wand in our business, not a legal magic wand, we'll say. But what is impressive, what has impressed upon a lot of people is you have to do A, B, and C. And if you do these things, if we have them on fresh water, if we're able to keep feed intake right, if we're checking fecals and we have parasites in check and coccidia in check, and we're doing all those things, if you're just covering the basics, you're going to beat 80% of the competition just with that alone. And sometimes we lose track of those fundamentals. And just by sending that protocol out, I think even families that have shown for a long time, we think, yeah, maybe we need to just send that fecal off or send it to them and let them check it. Let's make sure we're putting ourselves in that position. And guys, parasites or coccidia, they don't have to have the screaming shits to do harm. A lot of times we'll have people call and say, I just can't get them to gain quite as well, or they're not quite as bloomed up, not putting on any condition. If we have a certain level of parasite or coccidia there, they're not sick, they're not loose stool, they're not any of those things, but they may be pulling from that animal or not allowing that animal to get to its full potential. Maybe it can only get 90% of the way or 95% of its genetic potential because of that single factor. And because of the competition level that we're in, we have to have every percent. Ryan, what would you do? And just think about the one of those families or that you've helped with steers not that many years ago. If you could just say there's something that you could give a certain product that's going to help that animal 10% more, even though the animal looks good, you would do it every time. I mean, even a couple percent more. We're doing anything to just gain a little more, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
And we can't cover every single way on this in one episode or maybe in all of the episodes. But yeah, if you're not doing every single thing that you can possibly think of to give you a edge, whether it's 1% or 10%, then you're probably not going to reach the success that you desire or that other people are having.
And another those that are having that, they're doing those things. People, right. I'm just telling you, it's gotten to that level. I'm not saying maybe that 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it maybe wasn't quite as competitive, and you every single year it's going to get more and more.
Right. So earlier we were talking about how that we don't have a governing body, or there's some gray areas and things, and not a specific set of rules to how you play this game in all instances. And this is where I'm going to enlighten people on things that happen that I can't tell you that it's number one, not illegal. Is it moral? Probably. There's some things that I don't think are, but here's the deal, people. At 90% of these shows, or I'd say 95% of these shows, actually, it is one person's opinion that decides how that show goes and where your kid stands or where that animal places, all this other stuff. Some have, 2 judges, some have a panel, but 95%, it's that one person. So in the end, it is only up to that one person in the ring if these things have happened, if they think that crossed the line, or maybe they shouldn't have done that or gone this way about it, all this other stuff. It's not up to what I think unless I'm out there being the judge. It's not up to what Dale thinks if he's out there showing a goat to somebody. But there are things that do happen that I think people need to be aware of, not only because you need to be aware, but also I think that people need to know this because we go back to this 900 times. Judge selection is the most important thing at every single show. And it just is. So I'll use an example, Dale. A hypothetical example. Got a kid. Know who the judge is. And you can use Texas majors as an example because those judges are announced way in advance, all this other stuff. Somebody comes to me, they want an animal for a Texas major, all this other stuff. I know who's judging. Now, I would never go to that judge to buy an animal, even though most kids in Texas put many on feed. You wouldn't ever show it to that judge, or I would hope not. Some people would, though, wouldn't they, Dale? They would go buy one from that person.
Absolutely.
And is that wrong? Is that right? I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. I know people that if there are live auctions, XYZ's judging. Them and their family are going to go. They may not buy one, but they're going to put their hand in the air so they can see, that judge can see them bidding on their animals, all this other stuff. Is that right or wrong? I don't know. And I can't answer that for everybody out there. But that happens. And you and I both know what happens.
Yeah, let's break it down a little. I think if we break it down a little more, we can maybe give a little right or wrong in there. So if they go to that breeder sale, online sale, visit the house, whatever, and buy an animal, and they actually take that animal to them, that's easy for me. You?
No, for me, yeah, that's a no.
I think.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
and if there's one thing that I hear out there right now, is things like that happening. Whether it's an animal that came from that breeder, or a partner of that breeder, or genetics. I mean, just all of those things. And if it's a direct buy, I will have clients call me if I'm judging a show, or if Tara's judging a show, or even if Craig is. They say, "Hey, we were planning on going to this jackpot show with your goat. I see you're judging." At a jackpot show, I'm never going to say, no, you can't. I'd say, ideally, if you have other shows you can go to, that's probably best. But if there's not that many shows, and this is one of your only opportunities to get the animal out, that's fine. But realize you're probably going to have to be significantly better of the one right beside you to get ahead of that one. You're going to be indirectly penalized just a little bit, but you still get the show, you still get the experience. If you deserve to be second, you're going to be second. But if it's close between first and second, you're going to be second every time. We're not going to give you the benefit of the doubt because of that perception. It needs to be very clear. And if it's even a county fair that some people place in a very high priority on, it doesn't need to happen there. A national show, a state fair, I just can't accept. And maybe in a pig situation, maybe if that breeder's producing a lot of animals and unknowingly they use their own, maybe you can let that slide. But how often do you think that happens versus they knew it was their own?
I don't think it's I don't think that
probably
probability is very high.
No, probably not. So I hear a lot
there are
of
exceptions to everything. I'm not going to say, but
so I hear lots of chatter that people are just furious that judges are using their own animals or animals tied very, very closely to them that they had sold or brokered or whatever. And it doesn't fly real well. So it's interesting. So that part of it, I say no. Showing up and getting the FaceTime at their sale, Ryan, where are you on that one? Let's say they don't even buy anything, but they're bidding on something.
This is kind of like going to the person in the ring.
Yeah.
There's no person that is going to be upset that you and your family came and put their hand in the air or supported them on an online sale and all this other stuff. So, this goes back to what I'm saying, like, because there is no rule, no nothing, whatever. I think that happens a lot,
I
and
think so too.
I think, should it happen that much? Probably not. But I think it's now almost like that in this current environment, I don't even think that's offensive to most people now. Do you see what I'm saying? Where
No,
I
not-
think at one time it might have been, but not so much anymore. Here's an go ahead.
Go back to when open cattle shows were even larger. They were larger at one time, especially up here, than they are now. Think about all those breeders out there within a given breed, and I'm not going to say any breed names. You could probably go across breeds, but think about that breeder that's judging that specific open cattle show, and 6 months later, the next national show, another breeder that showed under he or she does that one. We've talked about this. I mean, it has been really, really bad in the past, trading favors. Recent history in some of the hog shows, there were a group of hog breeders judging a lot of shows that were really helping each other's children. Not that they didn't have good hogs in the ring, but in a close decision might give them a nod. There's those things that probably happen all the time. And I think I can summarize it, Ryan. And we said we can't really draw a line what is legal, what's not legal. Let's look at it this way. And Ryan, I'm going to use you as an example. Again, you are in a very unique situation. If you go out and judge a show at this point in your life, because you're no longer brokering steers, does anything you do at that show, who you use for champion or what animal you use for champion, affect you financially in any manner?
No, and not at all. And I think a big misconception was when I was brokering steers is people thought I was making money off this. And the people that actually bought from me can tell you, no one ever wrote a check to me. They wrote them to whoever I bought them from, and I never charged a commission or anything like that. So I wasn't making money on it then. But absolutely now, and that's kind of why I went away from it, because I didn't want anybody to be able to say that, oh, he's making money off these people, or he buys so much from these people that when that certain broker's calf comes in, they've got an advantage because that's where Ryan gets all his steers from, all this other stuff. That's like, you know what? I don't have to do this, because just like what you said, not only in cattle, but in all species now, every decision that I make, it absolutely does not affect me financially in any way possible. And that's just not, I am very unique in that. And I don't think that it is even able to be comprehended that most people can't be in that position. And I get that. So yes, that part of me is unique, but I think it's a good thing. But I also don't think that it is even comprehensible to think that 99% of the judges can be in that position.
Exactly. And I think you can take it in a little more, I guess you could take it in a sense, if that show is hiring a judge and that judge is out there in the ring making decisions that are going to financially impact them, even if they're trying to do a legitimate job, even if they're trying to block all that out, subconsciously, Ryan, do you think it's still going to play an issue?
Yeah, and we've talked about that.
No question.
It does. But so talking about, these things, is it immoral, unethical to buy from a judge, go to that person's house? Again, that line ultimately goes back to who that person is that's been asked to judge that show. And you kind of touched on this just a little bit, but I think there are different levels in all of this. You talked about buying from someone that's in partners with the judge, or their genetics, all this other stuff. Okay. I'm going to go a different route. So the judge has announced you haven't bought your animal, and you know that said judge, even though they're not in partners, all this other stuff, but their best buddy is this person over here. Now, you go buy one from that best buddy. If you and that person are really good friends and this is a great animal, at some point during this animal show career, whatever, it's probably going to be talked about. So is that wrong, Dale, to go buy from a very good friend of the judge in hopes that, not that they say anything directly or bend on that person, but because of that connection, that might help you.
I think that is a great example, because go back to the comment we made earlier. You made earlier that there are some families out there that have done very well under you more than once because they know what to bring to you. Guess what? If that judge's friend is raising those animals and so forth, and for whatever reason, you could say because they're friends or they think alike or whatever, if that person and he's good friends with them, the chances are the kind of animals that they're raising are probably or are very likely in line with where that judge is.
Or at least he's going to have a very good handle on this is the one that you need for this dude right here.
You come to my place and they say, okay, such and such is judging Houston. And as a person that knows that judge well and has watched him judge, all the above, knows their philosophy, knows exactly what kind of animals they want, that breeder is then going to take them and say, here's the ones that I think will work best. And it may not be their lot 1 or lot 2 because this judge wants something specific or however you want to say it. So I think we're there. The fine line becomes, does that person reach out and put pressure on that judge? And I'm going to give judges some credit or hopeful credit here that's a no. If they're good friends, they're not going to put, I would not think they would put them in that position. So if they go to a breeder that happens to be friends or knows them, and this is a small world, guys. I mean, almost every successful breeder knows a lot of the judges that are judging national shows. We don't even have to be really good friends with them, but we have a pretty good handle on where they're at. So I think that's, to me, I think that's part of the title this, Playing the Game. Utilize those resources that are out there that can guide you in the right direction. Now, do I think that breeder that is a good friend should call that person the night before? Absolutely not. Don't have control over that. But as a buyer, I see that utilizing your resources and not necessarily even saying, because I bought from him or her, the judge, and the judge may or may not even know it. If it's a really good one that's won a bunch of shows, they're going to know. It just is.
Right.
If you go buy from somebody and they never took it out before and the judge doesn't know who, I mean, they may not have any idea, but that you bought it from one of their associates or friends, but maybe they guided you the type that judge likes, and you're still going to get along really well, even though he or she has no idea that came from there.
And so to expand on this just a little bit, then I'll move on to something else. But so you know that this person is best friends with the person that you have to show to in the end. You go and buy one from that person and you ask, say, hey, Johnny Cadabra, your buddy, is judging this show. Which one do I need for Johnny? And he points you in the right direction. This is the best one, all this other stuff. You never ask that person to contact the judge, put pressure on the judge, all this other stuff. None of that. But we are at the show. We are there. You are obviously going to rely on this person to help you probably fit and groom that animal. And his best friend standing in the holding ring with your kid's animal, even though you didn't ask him to, all of these things are there. And I'm not trying to tell you it's right, it's wrong, or it's indifferent, but you are a fool if you don't think this happens.
Agreed 100% on that one. Ryan, I can take it. I can take it down to it. I mean, just real simple examples. You'd said earlier, people are going to show to you, and I think because of the podcast, they feel very comfortable reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, what do I take to him?" I will have somebody text me and say, "Hey, Ryan's judging our county fair in Delaware, or I don't know where, or Washington or California, wherever it may be. What type of goats in your sale does he lean to?" And it's always easy. And sometimes they'll even send me pictures of somebody else's sale. Which one would you like out of that? And I said, well, and I don't mind answering it. It's always very simple. It doesn't take me a second to say, well, here's this one. This is a direction he's going to go. And it is just that simple. I think those people that are doing that, and I'm not encouraging everybody to reach out to me for every show Ryan's judging. I do not have time.
He doesn't like it already.
I do not have time.
So probably not a good idea. But
I do not mind doing it, but it just there's too many things going on in the day. It's hard to get all of that done. So getting back to that, I mean, there's no question, Ryan, and I'm going to be very transparent here. I would be, if I had a goat go into a jackpot show that Ryan's judging, the last thing that I'm going to do is tell him that I have one going there. And more times than not, that's going to work out, because if I told them that, yeah, you've got a goat that he'll probably like, I mean, because he's very predictable, it works out in their favor, and he may not have even known that was one that I raised or whatever. If it's a really cool looking one that's pretty exotic and colored up a little bit, I will sometimes get a call after the show. Hey, did you have one at such and such? And sometimes I'm not even aware that the people took them there, but it's interesting how all that.
No, I'm like, you had a goat here, by the way. You didn't.
And I will sometimes argue with you that I don't have a goat in that state. And I'm always right. Always.
Right. But, and talking about this, we said this is a small world, and every judge has friends. That is part of it. And they are friends in this industry. And I can't tell you, not just Dale. And I don't think that a lot of times there is any ill intent in this, but there are other people besides Dale. Because I do have other friends besides Dale. I know people don't believe that, but not many, but a few. Those people will get calls or texts or snaps and like, hey, Ryan's judging the show. And that handful of people all give the same answer that Dale does. No, I'm not saying a damn word to that person, because all that's going to do is hurt you. Like you don't want that. But that is when I judge. No, we're not all the same. Some people, whether it affects the ring or not, they have no problem with saying, hey, so-and-so's got one coming to you, yada, yada, yada. I don't care what you do with them, but they asked me to let you know, so I'm going to. And it may not affect them at all. There are some people that judge that when that happens, it can affect them. It can affect them like me. It can, be bad for you, or maybe it helps. It's just up to that individual person. But I'm just telling you, things like this happen. And I'm not going to sit here and be judge and jury on what you should do or what you shouldn't do. But I think a lot of the people that listen to this podcast because we don't sugarcoat things, and we tell you what really does go on. And these things really do go on. And you can decide amongst yourselves, amongst your family, where you're willing to go and what you're willing to do. But this is all part of playing this game. People buy animals from judges. People buy animals from their best friend. People get other people to send text, apply pressure, all of this other stuff. This is all real world. It happens. So I don't know. This is going much longer than I thought it would, but
same here. I thought it'd be a short episode.
I just think that everybody needs to know what is actually out there and happening, and decide amongst yourselves what you think is the right path to take. But this is real talk.
It is. And for me to summarize kind of my side of it, and this worked out really well. I hope the listeners enjoy this one. So sometimes, and we're telling you that all of these things are doing everything you can to put yourself in a position to win, and keep your moral compass there. You do what you believe is right. And obviously you kind of know where Ryan and I stand on that. So all of that. Now be careful. I want to caution you because I do see this. When we say get yourself some FaceTime or things like that, it's probably going to help, even if it's only subconsciously. That does not mean that that is the most important thing that you need to do to try to succeed at that given show under that given judge, because it still all goes back to doing the basics really well. And we're under our discussion today, we're assuming all of that is already being done. This is just those extra things, if that's logical. But don't ever get so caught up in the extras that you're not covering the fundamentals and covering them well. And I think if I were to look out there in the junior livestock shows, the people that consistently succeed year after year are those that are absolutely over the top, that the fundamentals are getting done extremely well first, and then they're finding all those extra things, whether it's a certain type of supplement that actually has some value in a certain area, or whatever else it may be, a hair product, or getting some FaceTime with that judge, or contacting a breeder because you know who that judge is, they can guide you to a certain type of animal. It all starts with the fundamentals and the basics, and then build from there. And I just want to leave that there, because sometimes we get so wound up in these other things, we don't do the basics well enough.
Not denying that.
Is it time?
Time for question and answer. And
Since
we are
you've already been paid in advance, you probably
yes,
should
I
tell me
am
this
so excited. We do have a question and answer sponsor that is paid for some episodes in advance, and we are very, very grateful to Infinite Health Labs that is located in Stillwater, Oklahoma. They are dedicated to the total wellness and creative, effective, and holistic healthcare products for humans and animals alike. Their newest product is Orange Power. If you have a finicky show project, now is the time to start using Orange Power. Orange Power is designed to stimulate the appetite quickly and will add a touch of bloom for that unique show ring look. All of the products made by Infinite Health Labs are available at their website, www.infinite, and I will spell this out, INFINITE, healthlabs.com. And so we greatly appreciate you guys for donating to the BTRJLA and sponsoring the question and answer portion of this podcast for the next month. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I've had a chance to visit with one of the individuals that works with this company, and it's good. Infinite Health Lab, I was sent a box of product everywhere from human products to companion animal products to show stock products. So I'll actually get some hands-on experience and give you some of my opinions on the products, and I'm welcome to answer those questions directly via text or messenger or any of those things. But no, I appreciate that very, very much. Now for the questions, Ryan. I'm going to be easy on you. I have a very long question here that I could make one, but there's actually 3 questions in one. And I don't know if this gentleman wanted his name. We're going to leave the name out. And I don't think there's anything bad there. Because I get in trouble sometimes with the names. We can say Brian. We'll just say Brian. We'll leave the last name out. The first part of the question, which will be question 1. And this is a little different one. Love the podcast. Couple questions for you. Actually, there's 3, not a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Couple questions for you. First, with the way our government now operates, how big a file do you think the FBI have on the 2 of you, given your outspoken views? I'm not as worried about the FBI as I am China, to be honest with you.
Well, I think this is funny because earlier today when I was watching the news before this, so there was some hearings yesterday about people that shopped at Cabela and I don't know, places that I don't shop, but that they were
Dick's Sporting's good and
yeah,
Bass
exactly.
Pro Shop, Cabela.
Right. Yes. Anyway, so you saw this too.
I saw it a week ago, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, it was the hearing, I guess, was yesterday. And so they were they didn't deny monitoring shoppers at that store for like finding if they used words like Trump or MAGA and whatever, all this other stuff.
Such crap.
Yeah. So to answer this question, it may be very, very thick.
Ryan, and when we started, I thought about it a little bit, and then I just let it go. And the further we get along, obviously we have no filter on what we think of politics or show ring or anything. And I think that's part of the popularity. But the more they uncover that this administration has been censoring and listening to, whether it's our cell phones or if you're shopping at a certain store, it's so far beyond what they should be doing. There is no possible way that we don't have a file at this point.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you talk about cell phones and all this other stuff. So, like, my friends will, like, the small circle that I have, like, when we text back and forth and all this stuff, they get mad because, like, they'll go on their Facebook and all these advertisements are for, like, either crazy sports coats or some gay shit that we talked about that we made fun of or whatever. And they're like,
and this is real. It's real.
No, this is real. Yeah, this is like, and these people, some of them are married and whatever. And they're like, my damn phone was listening or picked up on all this stuff. So now I have all these ads for gay stuff or crazy sports coats because of you. I'm like, again, I don't know what to tell you, but yeah. So to answer this question, I have thought multiple times since January 6th, 2020, because I had a lot of people just like, you need to go to here's Trump speaking this thing. Thank God I was judging at Cattlemen's Congress because I probably wouldn't have marched to the Capitol because that was a lot of walking for me. But I would have probably been arrested and convicted anyway if I had just been there. So, yeah, I bet the file is large.
And those poor people that were there for a peaceful protest that didn't go any further than that, they're still being tracked down.
Like I said, I'm telling you, I would probably have already been convicted and I guarantee you there is no way in hell I would have marched from whatever in the cold down there. No, it wouldn't have happened. But with today's whatever going on, yeah, I'd have probably been the most done.
No, so Brian, I don't know. I really don't. I do know that our producer Clifton had made a comment about how many website visits we've had from China very, very early on that disturbed me a little bit. But it's just hard to tell. I don't think we're going to change what we're doing, and hopefully we can continue to do exactly that. The second portion of the question, my kids have shown most species on a high level for many of the reasons, at a high level, period. For many of the reasons you talked about on your last podcast, my daughter gave up showing club lambs and transitioned to breeding/fitted frame sheep. Ryan talks often about using lesser used breeds of hogs or cattle, but he doesn't really talk about ever using breeding sheep for his overall champions. Does this happen?
I do not judge many breeding sheep shows. Thank God. Completely honest. And when I do, yeah, like I've used Dorsets and Dorpers and whatever, and even in market shows, I've used Southdowns and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I do the same thing because, and this is a good question. It doesn't happen as often because probably of all the things, I judge less breeding sheep shows than anything. Not that I'm not open to it, I just don't. But I market lamb shows. I've used things that most people commonly don't, just like I do in all the species. And I want to clarify something because, and I think I brought this up before, but it is not because I have some burning desire or passion just to be crazy and off the wall and like, screw everybody, I'm going to do something different. That's not it. I have 3 priorities a formula that are in my head when I go to select an overall champion. And one of them is which one looks the very best that day. Another one is which one of these could I take home and do the most winning with, because I say this a lot. I like to judge these. At one point, I like winning these shows just as much as judging them. But the third one, and they're not in any order of importance, is which one of these animals out here is the best for their breed. If they went to a national show amongst only competitors in that breed, which one would do the best? And that's why more times than most judges, a Burke or a Dorper or Mini Hereford or what the countless examples that we can give does get recognition in the Grand Drive, whether it's Grand Reserve or Top 5 or something under me, because that's one of my 3 criteria that I take into consideration when making those selections in the Grand Drive. So yes, it does happen. I just don't judge per percentage. I judge fewer breeding sheep shows than anything else.
Excellent. And this third part of the question is going to, because you don't do that many of the breeding sheep or frame sheep shows, might be a little harder question for you, but we're going to give it to you anyway.
Oh,
also, why do a majority of judges outside the bigger breeding shows seem afraid to handle fitted sheep?
I'm not afraid to handle them.
No, and I wouldn't be either. I think
I can't answer other than maybe they respect all the work that goes into fitted frame sheep. But I normally, if I'm judging breeding sheep, I handle them.
I think you absolutely have to, because those people that are fitting some of those frame sheep are so good at carving them out. I mean, we can look at base width, we can look at a lot of things and say, well, we can see through it, but I mean, they're so good at it. If you don't put your hands on them, you have no idea. And yeah, I think at the lesser shows, the judges that maybe don't judge as many fitted sheep don't feel comfortable because they're afraid to mess the wool up, or maybe they don't even know they're allowed to. But we're going to go on record right now. Every judge judging a fitted sheep, whether it's a county fair, a jackpot, a state fair, or a national show, put your damn hands on them and talk about it a little bit. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm not scared of it. And I did not know that people didn't do it because I have limited experience in this, but I'm with Dale. I think you should.
No, absolutely. Well, Brian, thank you for that. Ryan, this episode got much longer than we anticipated, and hopefully it's received well. But until next week, be safe.
Y'all come back now, you hear?